Welcome everyone tonight to this Beyond Zero lecture by het andere atelier, live from the Baarmassie in the Picardstraat in Molenbeek. Tonight we will focus on superblocks, the revolutionary and experimental concept that was first conceived 33 years ago in the mind of Salvador Rueda in Barcelona. Salvador Rueda is an urban ecologist, biologist, and psychologist who is active in the fields of urban planning, mobility, and public space, and who is also the inventor of the ecosystemic urbanism. His goal is to give back a maximum of public space to people that is now occupied by traffic. Should we implement his concepts in Brussels? How can we reconcile that with the needs for mobility? And how can we make sure that these beautiful ideas that are sometimes already in government programs, Good Move, for example, in Brussels, turn into reality and don't get axed after pressure from the car lobby? That will be the subject of the debate after the lecture. Salvador Rueda will join us in a minute live from Barcelona, but for now I would like to introduce a panel of experts that is here in Brussels. To my right is Kristiaan Borret, architect, professor and bouwmeester, master architect of Brussels, in which function he is paid to be critical, I heard him say last week, so we look forward to that, and who has also a special connection with our speaker tonight because he lived for a while in Barcelona. To his right is Nathanaëlle Baës-Cantillon, architect, researcher and teacher at UCL. She has co-founded Grue, an architecture, urban and landscape design office based in Paris and in Brussels. And she also does research on social housing estates in Brussels and their potential for ecological housing. And then the last one, Jens Aerts, urban planner and architect at Bureau for Urbanism, a bureau that invests in programs that mirror the main social issues of our time, and who is, total coincidence, who also has a connection to Barcelona because he was trained by Salvador Rueda. Before we start the lecture, I would like to inform people at home that we are in a COVID-proof environment. Everyone has taken a corona test before the lecture, and we are all safe. So if anyone would have worries about that. I would also like to inform everyone that there is time for questions afterwards, which you can send us through the chat. And we will ask them questions to Salvador Rueda, but also to the panel here in Molenbeek. And then at the end of the debate, we will have a surprise act, because we will welcome a special guest, Minister of Mobility in Brussels, Elke van den Brand, who will receive the final report with recommendations beyond Vision Zero from het andere atelier. So that was my short introduction. Salvador Rueda, we will start with you. You have the floor.
Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a pleasure for me to stay today here, and I will start with a presentation very quickly. It's okay? You can see
fine.
the
it's
presentation?
Fine. Yes, we can see.
Okay. This nowadays Barcelona in this moment, the 85% of the public space, above all the streets, is related with mobility, and particularly with the motorization. If we want to change this scenario, we need to change naturally the current mobility model. If not, it's not possible. The practically unique use of the public space is mobility. Then this is a picture where we can see the current scenario similarly to the scenario in practically all cities in Europe and over the world. This is the project approved by the plenary of the City Council of Barcelona in 2015, is the Superblocks project. The mobility plan of Barcelona is based in Superblocks. And this is the image, the proposition to change the current mobility model, and we can release practically the 70% of the public space today related with mobility. Only the lines in red are dedicated to connect one part of the city with other. Okay, the other part of the city will be released. For this, we need only reduce the 15% of traffic. It's quite magic. We can liberate 70% of the public space with only reducing the 15% of the cars in circulation. Like Barcelona, we are working in other cities over the world. In that case, is the current scenario for mobility in Quito, and this is the proposed, or Madrid, or Asunción in Paraguay, or the same model of superblocks for Buenos Aires, or Bogota, or Vitoria-Gasteiz, the capital of the country Basque in the north of Spain, okay? Or La Coruña, or Córdoba, or Málaga. In all the cases, appear a new network. What is the superblock model? Is a cell? Is an urban cell? Or what is? No, the superblock model is a network, okay? In that case, in the current urban mobility model, our city, all cities, the current model is based in all the streets are related with mobility. Practically all the city. And the occupancy of the soil, the accessibility, the CO2 emissions, the noise, the atmospheric pollution, the accidents, all of these variables are related with the current model. It's perhaps the most important creator of dysfunctions in our cities, the mobility. Then the superblock model established a network that integrates in its perimeter the circulation of all modes of transport and seeks. First of all, to release the maximum surface of public space, I said 70%, dedicated to the circulation and pedestrians. And at the same time, ensure the functionality of the system. Only 15% of cars in circulation are reduced at the same traffic service is obtained. And secondly, it seeks to minimize the dysfunctions generated by the current mobility model. We will see some of these variables, how it's possible to reduce the current impact, okay? That is not the subject of this lecture. The base of the Superblock model, I think very important. You can see in the map different shapes of superblocks. Not all the superblocks have the same surface because we want to uh, accommodate the morphology of the city. We want to accommodate the model to the morphology of the city, okay? And the particularities of the different ways and streets inside of the city. This is the reason why the surface is different, because we want to look for the most efficient scenario to release the maximum surface to the related with mobility. And we want also assure the functionality and the organization of the city, because only we reduce practically between 10-15% in every city. Okay? Then the implementation of the Superblock model, the traffic is not a problem, is not the problem. Even the investment, we will see after, okay? This is the different networks, uh, different networks. In that case, the Superblocks at the left scheme up of the scheme. In right we have the vast network, the new vast network based in an orthogonal network and very well accommodated to the superblock perimeter to go with the maximum speed uh, from a point to the other inside of the city. And this is the bicycle lines, and the end at right in bottom in the slide we have we have the integration of all of networks, even the green network, because we can introduce a new green network in part of the surface released previously with the Superblock model, okay? You can see here the different parts. We will see after, so. This is a scheme very easy to understand because at left we have the current situation uh, uh, and in the right scheme we have the Superblock abstract to explain how is working the Superblock cell. In that case, in black, we have the perimeter of the Superblock where the traffic go to connect the different parts inside of the city. But after that, in green, we have the released surface in the Superblock, okay? And the model is very flexible because in that case, we can inside of the Superblock, okay, but on a slope, uh, um, uh, go out of the circulation in that slope, but behind of the part where you go inside in the Superblock. In every part in the perimeter of the Superblock, we can connect with all the facades, okay? But we uh, we can go through to the superblock by car. Is the key. And it's silly to go in if you don't have the destination inside of the superblock. Okay? But you can connect all parts inside of the superblock if you must connect uh, in in every part inside of the superblock. Okay, but you can go through in both directions by bicycle and above all by foot. Okay, and another constriction is the speed inside of the superblock. The maximum speed is 10 kilometers per hour. Why 10 kilometers per hour and not 30 kilometers per hour? Because we want to develop all the citizen rights inside of this public space inside of the superblock. At 30 kilometers per hour, after 100 accidents between a car and a person walking, 5 of these people will die. 5 over 100. Then, if we want that the children play in the middle of the street, with 30 kilometers per hour is not possible, is not recommendable. At 10 kilometers per hour, yes, because all the interests are accommodated with this speed, okay? At the end, we have 2 walls. A function for circulation to connect the different parts of the city in red, and in green, not for circulation, even for communication, for stay, for contact, for socialization, okay? 2 walls in the same project. But the 70% of the surface will be connected with the communication walls. The most revolutionary idea, perhaps, is to change the current conception of our planifiers, where the maximum aspiration in the planification is to be a pedestrian fabrics. And in our project, we want to change from pedestrian to citizens. What is the difference? A pedestrian is a mode of transport. The citizen is something more. Okay? This is the key for us and the most revolutionary and radical idea. In that slide, we can see in blue the surface related with the pedestrian streets. Practically is 16% of the surface in Barcelona nowadays. But our interest is to change this scenario related in every case with the mobility, even pedestrian mobility. No, we want develop all the citizen rights and uses that is possible to develop inside of our cities with 4 more rights. The rights related with the entertainment, the rights related with the culture and art and knowledge, the uh, the rights related with the exchange, and even the the rights related with the democracy, the participation, the public space like an agora, the Greece agora, and naturally the right to displacement, above all by foot. And this is the final scenario for Barcelona. This is the previous scenario, the current scenario, and this is our interest, our goals, our objective to release practically 7 million of square meters. And this is possible to do with an investment very cheap. In that case, we can transform Barcelona with urbanism and tactical solutions with 300 millions of euros, not more. And we can change practically all. It's true, our problems are related with political problems, and also with the social and cultural aspects where the car in that moment is today the king of part of our behavior. And then after that, we are going developing different parts of the city with new superblocks, okay? And people in every step is more agree with the superblock model and the implementation of it. Several pictures with the tactical solutions, very with very success. People like this kind of solutions. The first pilot project, a lot of people go against the project, but today not, because they recognize the how we can improve the urban quality and the quality of life after the superblocks implementation in every part of the city where we are implementing this solution. Several pictures are related with the superblocks. At the beginning, is full of cars that streets, but it's not necessary. In that case, a museum give to the city these sculptures near of the museum. This is a picture not of Barcelona, is a tactical solution for Vitoria-Gasteiz. It's very interesting, this design because the white color is a neutral color. I think it's very important to recognize and to develop the design for the right that you want develop in that street. In that case, is an a street pacificated, and we want that the driver, the neighbor that the parking is inside of this street can recognize what is the uses, the main uses inside of this and in this street. Other thing, for example, is how in the case of Barcelona, we can release and change the intersection of the streets in squares. In that case, we have two, uh, 2,000 square meters in every intersection. With the Superblocks project, we can create practically 163 new squares like this. It's crowded every day, this, square in that case. Or even how we can develop a new green network, the corridors. In that moment, Barcelona perhaps has one of the most worst aspect inside of the city is not green. It's not a green city. We need to develop projects to renaturalization our city. Or in the case of the Vitoria-Gasteiz, how we can develop this marvelous green network inside of the city. Even several passes pedestrian paths, but in other cases is a real corridors inside of the city. Uh, we um, we made research with different teams of epidemiologic teams in Barcelona and other teams in several universities in Europe, even in United States. And this is the number of people that we can avoid if we implement the Superblocks in Barcelona. Quite 700 people and die prematurely every year. And we can avoid if we implement the Superblocks. And the reasons that explain how is the reason to people is dying um, uh, for air pollution or noise or temperature, even for the lack of green areas, etc. At the end, it's very important to know what is the impact over our health in every city. This article is published in the Environment International Elsevier Journal, okay, in 2019. This is I'm finishing quite. This is the comparison between the air pollution in the current situation. Practically the 50% of people are living in a non-acceptable air quality in our cities nowadays. With the Superblocks, practically the 94% we will live in a good air quality scenario. Okay, it's changed practically all. It's similar for the noise. It's not so spectacular, but it's not bad. Practically the 75% will live. We will live in a place where the the impact of noise will be acceptable, or even the heat effect island, how we can reduce the temperature, because we want to develop with the Superblock project a carpet, a green carpet, not only in surface, even in the covers, okay? Because we need to reduce 3 or 4 degrees, because in summer in Barcelona, the number of days with a temperature all the night over 25 degrees uh, is increasing year by year. The last year in 2020, the number of nights with this temperature all the night was were 25 nights. Is a lot. Is incredible. 10 years ago, the number of nights are only 5 nights, but the number of days, or better, the number of nights over 20 degrees uh, in Barcelona is around 96 days, all night. People living in near of the cover of the buildings without active devices to and refrigerators, it suppose the vulnerable people perhaps die in several occasions. All the green solutions and networks with the Superblocks, we can multiply the number of species and the biodiversity inside of our city, because uh, we can change totally the current situation without green areas, with above all with trees. We can project the shadows in practically the 100% of our surface, but in high percentage of uh, of the city involved with this project. This is the temperature of the surface in the current situation at left, and how we can change the temperature of the materials after we implement the superblocks and the uh, developing this green carpet, and also permeable soils, increasing the permeable soils. The combination of the permeability and the shadows allow us to reduce significantly the temperature in our streets, in our public space, okay? And also, it's possible to get the emissions of CO2 because in that case is the Vitoria-Gasteiz, we can reduce practically the 33% of the um, greenhouse gases after the implementation of the Superblock project in that city. And finally, perhaps I don't know if I 5 minutes or less. One of the most uh, modern idea in that period of the COVID-19 it will is the 15 minutes series. The idea of the Moreno in Paris. In that case, with the superblock model, it's possible to increase the number of the legal entities, the activities in our cities. In all the cases, the number of new economic activities increase at least 15%. In other cases, even 60% of the new activities appear after the implementation of the Superblock project. In that case, we have here the, the legal entities in coordinates, okay? And we create a new dictionary to read the city, and we can develop a message, okay? With this message, we can know what is the level of the information of this message with the information theory, and we can know what is the level of organization in every part of our cities, okay? Like this. With the superblock, and this is the density of activities inside of the Barcelona, but at the end, this is the coverture of activities, the daily activities, and in combination, what is the population with six basic activities near a less of 5 minutes of their home. In that case, practically Barcelona is involved in 5 minutes with six basic daily activities, or in that case, facilities. In that case, five kinds of facilities, okay? This is the public facilities, but when we introduce also the private, this is the map, okay? Barcelona, in that case, the distance between them is 600 meters. It means 8 minutes far walking. In the case of the daily activities, shops, retail, etc., related with food or or pharmacy or culture, etc. In that case, it's 300 meters, 5 minutes. And in the case of the facilities, is 300 or 600 meters. For example, a market is a facility, a basic facility, and the distance is 600 meters, okay? But, for example, we have a very big problem with the green areas, is in red. But the coverture of the public transport, in that case, in three kind of public transport networks, is very, very good for us, okay? And thank you. This is all.
Thank you very much, Salvador Rueda, for your interesting lecture. I think we're always amazed if we see how much public space is taken up by traffic, how we take it for granted, and to see the possibilities of what's possible in a city if you use it for other, if you have other uses for it than just traffic. Before we go back to you, we come back to you with some questions. I would first like to ask our panel for a short reflection on what we just heard, and maybe already, reflect on the question if a concept like this would also be applicable here in Brussels, in the Brussels reality where we live in. Jens Aerts, maybe you want to start?
Okay. Thank you for the lecture, Salvador Rueda. It was very nice to look back to Barcelona, and also to understand well that it's very clear that the livability of Barcelona is really related with the mobility solution, and that it is also for Brussels very true that it's our stone in the shoe, our mobility issue, and that we really have to get out the stone. But you also were very clear in documenting, especially at the end, that it's a very layered, there's a whole menu of advantages that you elaborate, and they're very evidence-based also, they're very, very precise. So it seems to me that for Brussels it seems an opportunity, but I will put it as a question. I wonder if you felt that it's strategically in Barcelona also important to get it out of only the mobility discourse and to really make this more expansive discussion about a lot of things. You said reducing the heat island, improving the biodiversity, reducing noise and air pollution. So my question is, at what moment or in what kind of discussions was it important to actually also shift sometimes the debate from a mobility discussion towards a more broad discussion on livability?
Yeah. I think this question is similar in practically all cities. And normally in the institutions like the city council, the different departments has the competence to develop their self-competence. Okay, the mobility transport department want to develop the ideas of the transport engineering, and the cars is always in the middle of the discussion. Okay, but step by step, this awareness is changing. Okay, is changing. In other side, we have also the interest, the economic interest inside of the city. Okay, and some of these interests, above all the car sectors, is against of this kind of solutions, but they go with their tools, above all the medias. Okay, because they with publicity, they can push in that direction to reduce the expectations related with the new model for Barcelona. But at the end, the discussion of mobility is every day less, and are increasing the other scenarios not related with mobility, even with the urban quality, with landscape, with the social solutions and contact community solutions and social cohesion, etc. All of these variables are related inside of this scenario, and the participatory process are defining what is the best way to implement the solutions about the Superblocks in Barcelona.
Thank you very much. Nathanaëlle?
Hello, Salvador. Thank you for your presentation. Well, I guess despite all the differences between Brussels and Barcelona, it sets the ambition quite high, also for Brussels. And I must say that I was quite intrigued by your curriculum first, because you're I took some notes actually. You have a degree in biological science, in psychology, as an environmental engineer. So you're kind of crossing borders, and then as director of the Urban Ecology Agency, which kind of intrigues me also as what is that, and how come such an agency also focused so much on mobility as a kind of leverage to work on the city and on its ecology. I think for Brussels the idea of transdisciplinarity is very interesting, and also for in regards to the Good Move plan, and also to the work that the Andere Atelier is doing, and I think that kind of already brings something. Also, when you go through the Good Move plan, you see that there's a lot of great intention that are also crossing borders of mobility. So it's not only a vision on mobility, but on all aspects of urban life. But therefore I'm quite interested in all the work you've done also on the notion of ecology, and I wonder how you continue to monitor or evaluate such a process. And also in regards to the images you shows it's very playful approach to public space, also very much on the surface. So how does it also in the time in a more durable way, also how does it implies the maybe the thickness of the soil, or if you see what I mean?
I think the most important is to the approach to analyze, even to regenerate our cities. And for me, the main idea is to understand that the city is an ecosystem. I'm an ecologist, and the city is an ecosystem. After that, it's possible to understand inside of the same scenario all the variables related between them. Okay? And after that, it's possible to develop different ways and integrate at the end of the way all of them. The idea of the transdisciplinarity is only possible if we develop models, because it's the play of the place of the game, where we define the constrictions, and after the specialist comes and can develop the specialized knowledge, but the rules are previously fixed. Okay? This is the key for me. And after 20 years in the Urban Ecology Agency of Barcelona, we developed a lot of ways in economics, in biodiversity, in mobility, in metabolism, in social cohesion problems, but working together. Okay? In every of our projects, normally are involved 15 or less people, or 20, or 25 of 15 specializations. Okay? But if you want to make something like the Superblock model, because today I explained the Superblocks like the base of mobility and public space, but we can make another lecture where the Superblocks is also the base of the new urbanism. And the Superblocks appear also like a fractal in integrating all the variables that we need today if we want to fight with the current challenges, the current impacts, in particular the climate change, for example. Okay?
Thank you very much. Salvador, shall we go to our last panelist, Kristiaan?
Yeah, perhaps I have something first as a kind of general reaction. So when I was a student, I went to Barcelona to learn lessons from Barcelona. And I think one of these lessons in those times was that if you transform public space, then the area around it, it will have an impact that is larger than just the public space itself. So the area around will also be transformed. So that's the time of the big projects, of the harbourfront, the Mall de la Fusta, Plaza de Catalunya, and so on. And I think in Brussels, that's something that we have learned as well. So we've done many squares now. We could have done more, but still we have some examples of Flagey Square, I think was on that level, really new thing in Brussels. But today we can learn something new from Barcelona, and that you could say it's not about the cherry on the cake, but it's about the cake now. So we have to work in the next years also on the level of the ordinary streets, the everyday street, because it's there that you can indeed also induce systemic change. We need strategic projects at one hand, but we also need a kind of multiplication of many small interventions in the streets that make the streets more livable. So for me, that's quite important. I think it's two levels of a kind of quality policy. It's two sides, and both of them are important. In Brussels, I think, because if we think about public space, we think about the squares, the parks, the boulevards. But I think 50% of surface of public space in Brussels is in fact the everyday street. So we should make change there as well. So my question would be then, so how did it work? How did you and why did it take so long? You could also say, because your idea is something like 30 years old. So one could criticize it as well. It took quite a long time in order to get realizations. So is it difficult to convince the political leaders to invest money not in prestigious projects, but in ordinary streets? Was it difficult? Is it linked to the habits of the traffic engineers and the maintenance people? Because it's in this kind, for instance, it's in this kind of cycle of maintenance of the streets, renovations of the streets, that you have to intervene in order to change the aspect of the street. So how did that go?
Yeah, it's a difficult answer for me because I think in every city, perhaps the solution is different. Okay, but the problem normally is the current representative democracy, where the parties go against one with others, and normally they want neutralize the solutions of the current government. Okay, and in the case, for example, of Vitoria-Gasteiz, that question is a strategic question for all the parties. They are agree with that solution, and they are involved and participate with agreements in all the cases for all the parties, and at the end is in the avant-garde in that moment. Vitoria, in that case, perhaps will be the first city over the world with the Superblocks implemented in all the city. The reason is above all political. We have also another problem. I'm psychologist. I think our brain in part is full of a car. We have a car in our brain. We need to go out. If not, it's not possible to think with common sense. And then people, above all, is against to change the habits. The daily movements with the car and mobility inside of the city, the people don't want to change the habits. After 1 year or 1 year and a half, when they recognize the solution and how the urban quality is increasing after that, then change. But they need a time to change. Okay?
And they need
then
the experience.
You need to be brave for the change. If not, it's not possible. Another thing, after your intervention, for me, it's very important to recognize solutions for all the city, and very quickly, because we don't have time. We don't have time, in my opinion. Above all, with the climate change problem, we need to implement models where the investment is cheap and the functionality is not break. The organization of the city remains with this kind, with the Superblock model in that case. Okay? Then it's not possible to make only the acupuncture solutions in every part of the city. No, we need to change all the city. We need to regenerate the current urban mobility model, because we need to reduce drastically the greenhouse gases emissions. We need to reduce the air pollution, because a lot of people are dying in our cities because of the traffic with cars, etc., etc.
Thank you very much, Salvador. Was the answer sufficient? Are there any more questions that you would like to pose him?
Yeah, I would be curious, but then because we know a lot of examples of we know all these images where you have temporary or tactical refurbishment of the street. So what happens with the next step when things should be consolidated? And so I think it's important that it's also realized in a very physical and in a very permanent sense, because then it becomes also less easy to delete it afterwards. So that goes also for the temporary kind of installations during Corona or COVID, the period. It's also easy to remove them. So how is that happening in Barcelona? And is the speed and is the systemic spread efficient and good enough, or is it still very rare?
Is not easy. It's not easy. But I think we need a new science, a new design of the city to go against the current challenges. We need to develop elements that we can fight with these challenges. And then, for me, the tactical solutions is not sufficient developed, okay, in that moment, and we need to develop and deeply the solutions, and to include the dysfunctions of these tactical solutions. Okay, it's not easy, I think. But when it's permanently the solution, in the case of Barcelona, I think we have a very good architects and designers, very good. Okay, in Brussels also.
Sure.
Thank you.
And and at the end, all the permanently solutions developed since until today are perfectly accepted by the people, even the medias, etc. I think we need to improve the tactical solutions, because we need this kind of solutions if we want to fight with this current challenge. If not, I think we have a very big problem in the future. Sure.
Okay, thank you. There are some questions from the audience at home, but maybe first Nathanaëlle or Jens, you still have a question for Salvador?
Yes. Sorry. No, I just wanted to add something about you said that we need to change the habits, but I think in Brussels the habits have changed a bit. When you see the numbers, the increase of cyclists, for instance, it's quite impressive in the last 10 years how there's a shift there, and it's true that it's quite. Then sometimes, as a cyclist myself, I'm a bit frustrated to see that the infrastructure are not following, you know, that the solutions that are actually often low budget solutions, but that are not really going in the good direction, like when you have to take a one-way street on the wrong way with your bike or with your two kids behind, you know, it doesn't feel very safe, or there's many situations that now are becoming also very common, but that probably are not the right the right solutions to make that change of habits also. So, but it's more a remark than a question.
there are some questions from cyclists as well, but maybe Jens?
Yeah, I wanted to go a bit deeper on what actually Nathanaëlle started mentioning, but you also mentioned the clear importance of multidisciplinarity, and I think I also recall Barcelona when I studied there, that there was always a desire to actually innovate in governance also. I would say in the city authorities, how things were managed. It was not just only about the scale and also the cake and the cherry. And I wonder if this project is also not a kind of example of how also things have been started to be managed differently within the local authority, maybe also with capacity in the universities to be very knowledge-based, maybe also the capacity of the neighbors, the people in the street, to be able to understand this project, and that it's not just about being against the cars. And that's something I think also very interesting for Brussels, because Brussels is a city, I think, where there's always a lot of cracks, and in these cracks there's always new ideas that come up. So I think this kind of good move plan can also be an opportunity to really make grow new things.
Yeah. In Barcelona, you know Barcelona, and you explained something about this, but this ecosystemic approach is not easy. Not everybody understand this kind of to resolve the problems. Normally is the specialization, okay? And our work in part was to convince and to include the different kind of thinking about the city in an unique and integrated approach. We recognize the city like the most complex system developed by the human beings. It's very complex, and every problem has multiply aspects that we must integrate, but it's not easy. In the Urban Ecology Agency, I worked with 50 people for 20 years. Perhaps 2 people understand this integrated approach. Very good people, very good professionals. It's a pity that is the problem, because the knowledge comes to the students with the specialization. And this is one of the problems, because we are thinking with silos, and it's very, very difficult to cross these silos and to integrate the knowledge in an integrated approach. No, it's not easy.
Okay, that's already a clear message for tonight. I will switch to some questions that we have from our audience. I have 2 questions from cyclists. And the first one is, you told us that within the Superblocks, the maximum speed is 10 kilometers per hour. And so one of these cyclists says, well, that's not very efficient when you're a cyclist. Or is it the idea that you use the red connections, the roads meant for general traffic? Or is the interior of the superblocks always a shared space? What about conflicts between people on foot and people on bikes? I think that's a problem we have in Brussels as well. Yeah, what's your idea?
Yes, the public space appear when we have conflict. If not, it's not public space. Is urbanization is different. Okay, the public space is the base of the city, of the definition of a city, because it's the common home, is the key of the cities. The city start with we have public space. We can have buildings, unifamiliar buildings in the suburb, and the space connecting with a road or a street, but it's not a city. It's an urbanization, it's different, okay?
Yeah.
Public space means conflict, share, and we need to develop how we manage this conflict in interest. Then the bicycle is one of these conflicts. I think with the education, we can improving how we can share this public space for all interest. For bicycle in Barcelona and the Superblock model, naturally, we need the network, a specialized network at the beginning, a specialized network for transport to connect one part of the city with the other, okay? And if it is possible, we include in the perimeter of the superblocks, the main lines for bicycles. The reason is clear. If it is transport, we need some speed to connect the different parts of the city. I push lately, I'm pushing to make increase the number of electrical bicycles. With an electrical bicycle, when the distance is less of 11 kilometers, the electrical bicycle arrives first than a car in our cities. 11 kilometers. Then the speed of an electrical bicycle is at least 30% more than a traditional bicycle. Then we have in these safety lines the way for to become the bicycle in a real alternative mode of transport. Inside of the superblock, the bicycle can use this space, but is not exclusive. The cyclist needs to understand that in that space, the most vulnerable people are before of the transport with bicycles. Okay, the rights of the vulnerable people, even the kids, the children, are before of the transport, but it depends the uses in every moment inside of the superblock where this conflict disappear or not. At the end, the cyclists they need to recognize what is the maximum speed inside of the superblock. Perhaps attacked by night in the winter, nobody are occupying these streets, and then the cyclists can go with a speed quickly. Okay, quicker.
Another question which is also asked by a cyclist is the lanes connecting the superblocks for
Yes.
normal traffic. Why is the speed limit 50 and not 30 kilometers an hour?
Yes. I didn't say this, but our proposal is in the perimeter of the superblocks, the maximum speed will be 30 kilometers per hour. Only some ways, specialized infrastructure for mobility, okay, and normally segregated, will go at 50 or maximum 80 if it's totally segregated the way, okay? Maximum 80. But the majority of streets playing the role of basic ways, it means perimeter of the superblocks, the maximum speed will be 30 kilometers per hour.
Okay. One more question. What happens at night in these superblocks? What's the difference daytime versus nighttime? And are there different uses? You already mentioned one thing, saying that cyclists can drive faster when there's no one there at night. Are there other, how do you see that, the difference between nighttime and daytime?
I don't know. We need to leave the superblocks, and I hope the different uses of the inside of the superblocks will be different. I don't know. But at the beginning, we want to preserve the safety of the people, above all the vulnerable people.
One more question.
Sorry, the superblock is like a little town. Okay, it's a little town. It's not true, but it's similar. Is a lot. Is a very slow space where the life that our parents and grandparents living in the cities without cars, okay, it's possible to include in the modern cities. And above all, if we are thinking with the perspective that we will happen with the new technologies and the autonomous vehicles, okay?
There's one more question connected to that. Someone who remarks the most important gain of the superblocks is not mentioned yet. Maybe you mentioned it at the end. The growth in social interactions, qualitatively and quantitatively, between inhabitants. Can you say something about that? Has it ever been measured?
Yeah. In the ecosystemic urbanism, my idea is to put people in the center of the planification. People and the law of the nature. I think we need something like that, okay? And after that, if we put people in the center, of this scenario, then we want the contact, the social cohesion, the community. We need to rethinking the manage of our city. In that moment, the 85% of the public space in Barcelona is managed above all for the local police, because the main right that they need preserve is the displacement, mobility. And they manage the city, because it's impossible to do another thing. We need to rethink the municipalities, the city councils, the municipality departments in culture, in export, in green manage, etc. Because with the Superblocks appear a lot of activities, new activities, and new uses, because appear new uses in the public space. To manage this is not easy. We need regenerate totally our institutions about this.
Okay, I have one last question. After this question, I suggest we go back to the panel maybe with some final reflections. It's a question from someone who says, it's interesting to hear that the focus point of the Superblock is not a pedestrian, but the citizen. First is just a mode of transport. The latter is someone with a lot of activities and who lives in a city. But what about the right of work or the right to work? It's a critique that we often hear in Brussels, often by the left parties, suggesting that people need their car to go to their workplace. People who have a van, who need the van to transport stuff. I think a few weeks ago with the lecture of Angie Schmidt, it was mentioned as well. These are all very nice ideas. Ban the car out of the Superblocks and give the space back to people to play, etc., etc. But what about the people, who need their car to work, which we hear a lot in Brussels as an argument against these sort of new experimental ideas?
I'm not against the car. I think the problem is the bad use of the car inside of the cities. Okay? Because the occupancy of the public space is not acceptable, in my opinion. The impacts in the health of the health is not acceptable. The greenhouse gases is not acceptable, etc. We need to find what is the best solution, the most efficient solution to reduce this kind of impacts. Okay? Then, if a person needs the car, they must to use the car. Why not? But everybody, not. We need to develop the alternative infrastructure for the other mode of transport, above all the public transport, efficient, comfortable, etc. Also, a very safety bicycle network, continuous network connecting every part of the city by bicycle, or even with this personal advices that appear recently. And above all, we need to change the landscape and to improve the urban quality of our streets. Even if we develop this, the number of people walking will increase. like in Barcelona. Okay, with a new, the first thing that I develop in every project that we develop in different cities, the first thing is to redesign the bus and transport public network. It's the first, it's the most important. And normally, the current networks, public transport networks, are radial networks. In the case of the redesign of network, this kind of networks, the orthogonal network is the most efficient. I proposed this change in Barcelona in 2002, a new bus network, and the project would like to change the 84 lines of buses in Barcelona for 28. 84 to 28. At the end, is implemented in 2018. This new network are implemented totally. In 5 months, the number of users of this new network increased the totally of public transport users in 15% in Barcelona in 5 months. In Vitoria-Gasteiz, the number of users increasing after the new bus network before the pandemic was more than 100%. It's incredible.
Incredible results, I think. We have about 10 minutes left. I go back to the panel. Do you have a final question for Salvador or a final remark on maybe on the reality of Brussels and the way his ideas might be implemented here or not? Kristiaan, I'll start with you.
Yeah. Perhaps to talk about Brussels now. I think, of course, the morphology of Barcelona is different, and some positive aspects of the Superblocks system is also linked to the fact that it's a grid and that you have these intersections where you can recuperate, in fact, a lot of space for public space instead of just traffic space. On the other hand, well, more fundamental lessons are, of course, that if you work in a loop system, that it helps, that all streets doesn't have to have the same kind of car accessibility, that you can make differences. And so that it is important to work on ordinary streets, on everyday streets, to improve the quality over there. I would also like to, let's say, to present the Barcelona idea not as radical, but rather as realistic. Because indeed, cars are not banned. Cars are allowed in those loop streets, but you are invited to drive slowly. And you are not anymore allowed to cross those superblocks in order to go from one side to the other side of the city. So it's also about concentrating car traffic, making differentiation. So we are too much used in this kind of car-dominated city with the heritage of car domination, that cars should be everywhere, that all streets should be equal. Well, all streets should not be equal. And so making that kind of shift, with perhaps only reducing 10 or 20 or 15% in car traffic intensity, could mean a huge change in the livability of space. So it's really worthwhile to work on that level of ordinary streets, but in a huge repetitive way, so that if everywhere small things are happening, that is really bringing a lot of change in the city, I think so.
All over the city.
All over the city. It's also about the multiplication of this kind of interventions, not just here and there as a kind of pilot project, but in a systematic way.
Exactly. I need to say something for me very important. Is with the 15% of carless in the Superblock model, we get the same or similar level of traffic service. It means the speed in the perimeter of the Superblock will be similar to the speed that in the current scenario. Okay? It means that the environment variables in the perimeter with the 15% of car less will be similar to the current scenario in terms of air quality or noise, etc. Okay? But in the urban mobility plan approved in Barcelona, the objective is not to reduce 15%. The objective is to reduce the 21%. It means that the speed will be faster in the perimeter of the Superblock, and the environmental variables will improve also. The air pollution will be less, the noise will be less, and at the end, we are looking for to improve the quality of life of the people, not only people living inside of the Superblock, even people living in the perimeter of the Superblock. Everybody must have a better quality of life and urban quality. Okay?
Thank you. Nathanaëlle, your last remarks?
Yes, no, but it's interesting when you go through the Good Move plan of Brussels, who has been quite recently approved, I think, because actually I did the exercise quickly this afternoon, but there's almost no pictures with cars anymore in it. It's mainly public space, park, pedestrian places, so as if there was already some kind of real change of mind or shift, let's say. So let's hope that it will
that's on paper.
Lead to that's on paper. But I would, like Kristiaan said, militate also for more coordinated actions also, because we see also that the 30 kilometers per hour plan has been put in action, but after 2 months I have the feeling that it's a bit back to actually 50 kilometers an hour, because there's no there's not enough reclaim of public space going together with that action of reducing the speed or other kind of actions that should be taken now, and not it's maybe too slow, and things have to be tested quite quickly in order to after be implemented on the longer term. And there, I mean, there's also a very let's say beautiful exercise for designers there to design the new sections of the streets, if they're banal or not, or even for the bigger boulevard of Brussels, of course. There's really an opportunity there.
Jens?
Yeah, I was wondering about one thing that is maybe most inspiring is that in the scheme you showed, it's very clear that on the crossings within the block, so in the model, that there's no crossing anymore, so that actually produces enormous amount of public space. And I think that's something that for Brussels can be very inspiring, because our streets are, compared to Barcelona, rather narrow. They have various forms, which can also be very nice because it's not repetitive. Every corner can be unique. But it's really about the speed. How can we quickly now do as much as possible of them? And I think I'm a bit thinking about the cake again that Kristiaan came up with. We are actually now going in a process that the planning regulation, that we're gonna try to change it, and it's like the basic planning regulation, like for daily housing, building permits. Maybe we have to try to also use that exercise. How can we facilitate that the cake quickly changes? Like, how can we have processes that are easier, that also set the bar very high about creating, I would say, a public space for everyone close to 10 meters of the house, something like that. I think that could be a good complementarity to the Good Move plan, because the Good Move plan at the end is also about mobility, to really think about how can we now accelerate this public space gain for citizens.
Salvador, you have a last message for Brussels?
I'm not. I think it's possible to develop something like the Superblock model in Barcelona, in Brussels. Why not? I think we need to regenerate our cities. We must to regenerate our cities, and this solution is not expensive. Assure the functionality of the city, and I think we don't have any reason against to develop something like that. Only in our brain is the goal, the problem, and some interest. But I think we need to planify the future, thinking of the current challenges, big challenges, and we need to planify our cities, I think, thinking also with the new technologies that that are coming. Okay, the parking will disappear surely. What happened with this space? What happened with this huge volume that we have in every city? I think the new mobility will be a service, not a private property. Okay. The new mobility will spread the first robots implementation in the cities, the autonomous vehicles. Okay, and surely will be a shared vehicle. The car sharings perhaps will be the next step, and then practically all will change in our cities. We need to planify in that new scenarios. The scenario, the technological scenario, but also the scenarios to fight with the current challenges.
Okay, thank you very much, Salvador Rueda. Kristiaan Borret, bouwmeester of Brussels, one final remark maybe?
Well, indeed, don't underestimate the potential of the ordinary street for systemic change. Not just even with technology, with the help of technology and autonomous cars. Even then, we need to reorganize our streets, not just for traffic reasons, but also for climate change challenges reasons. The ordinary street can be really a help also to fight heat stress in the city. So there are many aspects that can be improved thanks to working on just hundreds and hundreds of streets.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Rueda, for your very inspiring talk tonight. I remember we have to change the habits of the people. We have to do it in the whole city, and we don't have a lot of time. We have to be really fast. Thank you very much also our panel for tonight. We have to end it here, unfortunately, because our Minister of Mobility, Elke van den Brand, has arrived. And she will accept the final report of het andere atelier. I want to ask everyone to stay connected. For 3 minutes we will disappear because we have to sanitize the space a little bit, make everything corona-proof again, and then we will be back to you for our last 10 minutes of the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ja, en intussen zijn we terug met een volledig nieuw panel. Welkom, Elke van den Brand, minister voor Mobiliteit, Verkeersveiligheid en Openbare Werken. Anne-Catherine Verdikt, architect en stichter van Filtercafé, Filtré Atelier, helemaal juist. Een van de 3 burgerbewegingen die betrokken is bij het andere atelier. En dan aan mijn rechterkant Marlies Leenaerts, architect en coördinator van het andere atelier. Welkom allemaal, ik zal het nog eens herhalen. Iedereen hier is getest voor we naar hier kwamen. Dus het is een volledig coronaproof omgeving. Vandaar dat we het mondmasker even hebben naast onze stoel gelegd. Anne-Catherine, ik ga met jou beginnen. We zitten hier op een heel erg bijzondere plek vanavond. Wat is eigenlijk de link met de lezing die we net gehoord hebben van Salvador Rueda?
Goedenavond. Je vais essayer de parler dans les 2 langues. Je vais un peu changer de langue. Donc, on est dans ce que nous appelons la pharmacie. C'était vraiment le cœur d'une rue d'été, la rue Picardstraat. Et oui, ces rues d'été, ils ont un lien avec ce que nous avons entendu de Salvador Rueda. Ce sont vraiment des espaces qui montrent le futur, comment une rue peut évoluer, comment cet espace peut devenir un espace de rêve, een espace du futur. Dus die toekomstplekken, de straat is een toekomstplek, is een plek waar heel veel uitdagingen samenkomen. Vandaag zijn straten vooral gefocust op doorstroming, zo snel mogelijk, brede rijbanen, veel parkeerplaatsen, soms heel smalle stoepen. En de verblijfsplek is vandaag eigenlijk nog heel weinig aanwezig. En wij geloven echt dat de toekomst in de straat is en dat een straat wordt een plek voor te ontmoeten, voor te rusten, voor te spelen, voor te bewegen. Is ook een plek waar je koelte kan krijgen als je begint de straat te vergroenen, waar ook de waterhuishouding samenkomt, waar zelfs in de toekomst misschien wel energie wordt geproduceerd. Dus ja, die plek is echt een uitdaging, is een plek waar al die uitdagingen samenkomen.
Jullie gaan hier zo meteen jullie publicatie overhandigen aan de minister. Beyond Vision Zero van het andere atelier. Wat was eigenlijk de rol van Café Filtré? Filtercafé van jullie organisatie in de totstandkoming van die brochure?
Filtercafé gebruikt eigenlijk de kracht van het ontwerp en gaat het ontwerp inzetten om meer ambitie te vragen, om een soort positieve toekomst te bekijken. En ontwerpen is ook kleur bekennen, is ook keuzes maken. En ontwerp heeft de mogelijkheid om al die uitdagingen waar ik het daarnet over had, om die eigenlijk allemaal samen te brengen. En dus, nous avons regardé dans 3 endroits, à Saint-Gilles, Évere et Ganshoorn. Donc 3 endroits concrets totalement différents. Donc, par exemple, Ganshoorn, on a vu qu'il y a beaucoup d'abords d'école. Des abords d'école, c'est vraiment quelque chose sur lequel on doit vraiment travailler. Ce sont les enfants sont vraiment les premières victimes dans les rues. Donc, comment est-ce que ces abords d'école peuvent devenir des endroits où les enfants se sentent bien et qui peuvent aller dans toute sécurité à l'école. Alors, Saint-Gilles, on a regardé dans Barreau. Je crois que beaucoup de Bruxellois connaissent très très bien Barreau. C'est un endroit, quand on arrive comme cycliste, on se demande comment est-ce que je vais traverser ce rond-point. Donc là, on a proposé une solution pour cet endroit, mais aussi un endroit où c'est agréable, c'est vraiment un espace public de qualité. Et finalement, Evere, c'est totalement autre chose. C'est la ville moderne. En fait, il y a trop d'espace public. Et même s'il y a trop d'espace public, il n'y a pas de piste cyclable, il n'y a pas d'espace public de qualité. Et intéressant, à Evere, il y a des fonctions supralocales qui servent en fait dans la ville 15 minutes, qui servent à toute la région. Comment est-ce qu'on peut les faire accessibles d'une façon facile et sécurisée? Et donc, toutes ces 3 endroits concrets forment le Beyond Zero Vision, ce qu'on veut dire en fait, que la sécurité routière, c'est que les débuts. Il y a beaucoup plus qu'il faut faire avec cette... la sécurité routière, c'est vraiment le premier pas et ensuite, voilà.
Ja, dankjewel aan Katrien. Marlies Leenaerts, ik ga naar jou. Jij bent coördinator van het andere atelier, samen met Heroes for Zero, dat is die andere burgerbeweging, en Filtercafé. Willen jullie eigenlijk een sterk signaal geven met deze brochure? Wat is het belangrijkste? Wat is het signaal dat jullie willen geven aan de minister?
Het is ook... Staat mijn geluid aan? Ja. Het is ook voor Bral dat ik werk. Dus het zijn 3 burgerbewegingen. Hè. Filtercafé, Filtré Atelier, Heroes for Zero en Bral. Mag ik 2 signalen geven? Ja. Ten eerste... is het echt heel belangrijk dat Vision Zero in de praktijk wordt gebracht. Vision Zero was al een onderdeel in het vorige actieplan. Vandaag de dag is het Brussels gewest het actieplan aan het herschrijven, een nieuw plan aan het maken voor 2021-2030. En het is echt zeer belangrijk dat Vision Zero op het terrein verwezenlijkt wordt. Dus dat is het eerste. Het tweede signaal dat we willen geven is dat verkeersveiligheid een onderdeel is in een heel breed verhaal. In een verhaal van een toekomstige stad waar het gezond leven is, waar sociale inclusie is, waar duurzaamheid en hitte, water enzovoort een plek krijgt. En eigenlijk de oplossingsrichtingen voor heel veel van die verschillende aspecten, waaronder ook bijvoorbeeld de gezondheid van mensen, luchtkwaliteit, het bewegen, het actief verplaatsen in de stad. De oplossingsrichtingen voor heel wat van die thema's zijn ook oplossingen voor verkeersveiligheid. Dus werk integraal op al die thema's tegelijkertijd.
Hoe zijn jullie, want er zijn 9 aanbevelingen, denk ik. Hoe zijn jullie op die 9 aanbevelingen gekomen?
Die 9 aanbevelingen zijn tot stand gekomen op basis van evenementen die het andere atelier heeft georganiseerd. Dat waren 3 wandelingen, boots on the ground, en die werden georganiseerd door Heroes for Zero. Daar zijn wij ter plekke op de straat gaan kijken, wat zijn hier de belemmeringen, wat zijn de struikelblokken en welke oplossingen staan daar tegenover, waar moeten we naartoe om de veiligheid te verhogen. Vervolgens heeft BRAL benchmark-sessies georganiseerd met de steden Oslo, Berlijn en Parijs, omdat we absoluut het warm water niet moeten uitvinden. Er zijn heel wat steden in Europa die prachtige voorbeelden kunnen voorleggen, dus het is heel interessant om bij hen te luisteren te gaan. En dan tenslotte heeft het Filtercafé Filtré Atelier een ontwerpworkshop georganiseerd voor de 3 plekken, voor de 3 contexten van de gemeentes waar we ook met Boots on the Ground hebben rondgewandeld.
Ja. Jullie gaan zo meteen die publicatie overhandigen aan de minister. Wat verwacht je dat ze ermee gaat doen?
Ik hoop dat ze geïnspireerd geraakt door de inhoud van de lijvige eindnota. Er zijn 9 concrete aanbevelingen, dus we hopen met de 3 burgerbewegingen dat jullie ermee aan de slag kunnen en het mee kunnen integreren in het nieuwe actieplan. Voilà, ik ga het overhandigen. Alsjeblieft, veel leesplezier.
Ja.
Dankjewel.
Voilà. Mevrouw de minister, u hebt het natuurlijk nog niet gelezen, neem ik aan, intussen. Vindt u dat eigenlijk aangenaam om zo, ik ga niet zeggen lessen van burgers te krijgen, maar aanbevelingen van burgers te krijgen?
Ja, absoluut. Ik denk, als we die stad hier willen veranderen, zullen we dat samen moeten doen. Dus die inspraak van burgers belangrijk. En het andere atelier was ook het was een traject en daar zullen we ook veel uit leren over hoe kunnen we dat ook doen om die burgers mee te betrekken in die beleidsvorming. En hoe kunnen we inderdaad de deskundigen en de technici die met heel veel expertise aan de slag gaan, hoe kunnen we die laten voeden door de mensen die hier wonen, die straten gebruiken, die iedere dag kennen, die iedere losse stoeptegel kennen. Hoe kunnen we die input meenemen en ook andersom, hoe kunnen we zorgen dat burgers meer inzicht krijgen in hoe dat loopt en hoe dat ze samen aan de slag kunnen gaan. Dus ik denk dat dat enorm rijk is. Ik denk dat dit traject, het is een interessant traject en we nu ook moeten leren van, want het is een eindnota, ik vind dat een moeilijke term, omdat ik hoop dat het een begin is van een verder. Het is een eindnota van een traject, dat is duidelijk afgerond, dat is aanbevelingen enzovoort. Dus het eindigt iets, maar het is niet een einde van dat was het dan, merci voor de inspraak en dan gaan wij nu voort. Nee, dus nu is het inderdaad, het is een hapklaar brokje, wij gaan dat nu lezen, dat is stap 1. We willen dat ook integreren in ons eigen verkeersveiligheidsplan, ook zorgen dat dat daarin komt. En dat is voor ons ook een leerproces van hoe kunnen we dat een plek geven, hoe kunnen we aan de slag gaan. En dus ik vind het ook heel fijn om te zien hoe dat enerzijds de administratie ook met burgerbewegingen, met activisten, met mensen op terrein aan de slag gaan. En ik hoor toch langs alle kanten dat er veel geleerd is van elkaar en dat is boeiend.
Ja. Marlies zei er net, er zitten 2 signalen in. Het eerste was, dus misschien een klein punt van kritiek. Er zijn vaak hele mooie plannen. Het Good Move plan is een heel mooi plan waar heel veel in staat. Maar hoe kan je ervoor zorgen dat die dingen ook gerealiseerd worden? En niet, ik denk soms aan de tijdelijke oplossingen van corona, fietspaden die geschilderd zijn, maar die na 6 maanden beginnen, de verf is weg en dan.
Je vais peut-être aussi parler un peu en français aussi. Alors, ça, c'était vraiment l'enjeu au début du trajet que, voilà, il y avait un plan de sécurité routière qui, jusqu'à 2020, un bon plan. On ne peut pas dire que c'était pas un bon plan. C'était un beau plan, mais pendant l'évaluation, la conclusion était c'est un bon plan, mais c'était pas vraiment réalisé. Et ça, c'était le premier enjeu. Bon, on veut pas juste un beau plan, on veut un plan qui sera réalisé. Alors, c'est pour ça que dès le début, l'idée, c'est de faire en sorte que tous les acteurs seront autour de la table. Il y a des activistes, des citoyens, mais aussi les zones de police, le parquet, les communes, faire en sorte que tous ceux qui doivent faire en sorte que ça soit réalisé seront inclus dans le projet et que ça sera un plan qui est beaucoup plus co-construit, comme ça, ce sera faisable et applicable. Alors, l'idée, c'est vraiment de travailler un peu dans le même esprit de Good Move, avec des fiches, avec des délais, avec des budgets, avec des responsabilités, et comme ça, de faire en sorte que ça soit beaucoup plus applicable, en réalité, sans diminuer le taux d'ambition. Et ça sera difficile, évidemment, mais je pense que là, c'est l'enjeu dont on s'est conscient dès le début de la conception du plan. Évidemment, le résultat sera... après à la fin du plan, mais j'espère que voilà, comme ça on peut vraiment faire en sorte qu'il y a une dynamique, et je sens quand même qu'il y a une volonté d'y travailler. J'ai eu des remarques ou des craintes par des zones de police, par exemple. C'était pas parce qu'ils ne s'intéressent pas à la sécurité routière, mais à la faisabilité de quelques mesures. Et c'est important de les écouter et d'y répondre, et de voir que pour les obstacles qui sont là, qu'on trouve des solutions, et comme ça de vraiment avoir un plan qui sera réalisé dans le futur.
Ja, en dan een tweede signaal, en dat is dan meteen ook de laatste vraag. Er is een vraag, en dat is ook iets wat we vanavond gehoord hebben in de lezing van Salvador Rueda. Verkeersveiligheid is niet iets wat op zich staat of wat alleen staat. Dat moet een deel vormen van alles wat een stad maakt. Klimaatverandering, meer plaats voor de mensen, niet alleen voor auto's of voor verkeer. Is dat te realiseren? En zitten er dan in Brussel, zoals Salvador ook zei, genoeg mensen uit verschillende disciplines rond de tafel? Of ja, is dat een manier om het te realiseren?
Het is in Brussel altijd het handigst om te zeggen, ja, het is zoveel niveaus enzovoort, en het is ingewikkeld, dat zal het zijn, maar bon, dat is de context aan werken, daar moeten we het dan ook maar mee doen. Ik snap het verhaal, ik ben er helemaal mee eens van verkeersveiligheid staat niet op zich en het zit in een breder verhaal. De kracht van verkeersveiligheid is wel dat het een enorme verbinder is. En dat, ik heb ook aan de schoolpoort actie gevoerd voor Filtercafé. En als ik over schone lucht praatte, dan moest ik daar een langere uitleg over doen. En als ik zei van ik wil dat uw kind samen met u hier veilig naar school kan gaan, dan heb je direct heel veel mensen mee. Dus de enorme verbindende kracht van dat element van verkeersveiligheid mogen we ook niet onderschatten. En zeker als je naar enquêtes gaat kijken, s'il y a des enquêtes nationales sur la sécurité en général, les éléments qui sont le plus haut dans le top 5, ce sont souvent des éléments de sécurité routière. Alors c'est quelque chose qui touche à beaucoup de monde, et c'est pas juste, voilà, on peut pas le voir en soi, mais on peut pas nier aussi le force qui est dans l'aspect ou de l'importance de la sécurité routière, et surtout la sécurité routière de nos enfants. Créer une ville où nos enfants osent sortir, où nos enfants osent aller, où les parents osent envoyer leurs enfants à pied à l'école, c'est tellement évident, mais c'est tellement pas le cas à Bruxelles. Alors c'est là qu'il y a aussi une force pour changer Bruxelles en général. Et je pense que aussi l'exemple qui était donné par Bruxelles en vacances, et c'est dans la rue Picard, était une des exemples, puis on avait 50 exemples. Ce qui ressortait, c'était pas juste comment est-ce qu'on peut réorganiser la rue, mais c'était vraiment comment est-ce qu'on peut réorganiser la société, parce que les réactions étaient beaucoup plus que « Ah, maintenant on a plus de place ». C'était aussi « Maintenant, j'ose sortir ». Des femmes et des personnes âgées qui ont dit « Maintenant, j'ose plus sortir et je me sens plus partie du quartier ». J'ai fait connaissance avec mes voisins, je vais faire le BBC, toutes les courses. Alors, c'est tout à fait un aspect social aussi et de cohésion sociale qui derrière. Alors, c'est changer la ville, mais si on commence avec quelque chose que touche à tout le monde, je pense qu'on y viendra.
Met deze mooie boodschap denk ik dat we kunnen afscheid nemen. En u kan naar huis met een beetje bedlectuur.
Huiswerk.
Ja.
Het is meer dan huiswerk, dan lectuur, denk ik. Ik denk het moet uitvoeren ook, dat de bedoeling is. Hè?
Mevrouw de minister, heel erg bedankt voor uw komst. Aan Katrien en Marlies ook om hier te zijn. Ik kan misschien nog zeggen dat er nog 1 lezing komt in juni. En wanneer is die juist?
10 juni. Van fietsprofessor Marco te Brommelstroet. Belooft een heel interessante lezing te zijn. Ja, het is, Marco had een heel fijn idee. Hij heeft 25 boeken te geven. Boeken die hij zelf heeft geschreven, Recht van de Snelste. Een ongelooflijk boeiend boek. Ik kan het hier... voilà, het staat in het schap. Dus er zijn 25 van die boeken. Als je op de Facebook van het andere atelier een comment plaatst waarom je denkt dat je dit boek graag wil lezen of waarom je het boek graag aan een vriend of collega zou willen geven, dan maak je kans op een van die boeken. Maar we zullen het op Facebook nog verder aankondigen.
Oké, tot 10 juni. En alvast allemaal bedankt om te kijken en te luisteren van thuis. En slap wel, en de avondklok gaat in, dus allemaal naar huis.